Thank you, Scott. Well, let's go ahead and get this meeting started. It is 5 o'clock after all, so I want to provide a warm welcome to everyone who is here this evening for our City of Kalamazoo Committee of the Whole meeting. This is not a meeting we necessarily have on a regular schedule, but this is a work meeting that we have that is devoted to particular topics, and we have an important topic to discuss this evening. So I'm officially calling this meeting, Committee of the Whole meeting, to order for Monday, August 29th. And our first order of business is our good clerk to call the roll.
Commissioner Decker.
Present.
Commissioner Hess.
Present.
Commissioner Hoffman. Commissioner Juarez. Commissioner Pradle.
Present.
Vice Mayor Cooney.
Present.
Mayor Anderson.
Here. Thank you, Clerk Boyling. May I have a motion to excuse Commissioner Juarez and Commissioner Hoffman from the meeting this evening?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Hess.
Support.
Supported by Vice Mayor Cooney. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay? Thank you so much. The motion passes. City Manager Ritzma, Communications.
None, Your Honor.
Thank you, Manager Ritzma. Now is the opportunity for public comments. Public comments at a Committee of the Whole meeting are limited to 2 minutes. We'll start with public comments from anyone that's in the chamber. It can be on any topic. Please come forward, state your name and whether you live in the city. And once we give an opportunity for anyone in the chamber first to speak, if there's no one, we'll be looking for individuals who may have called in. So seeing no one at this point, Deputy City Manager Chamberlain, has anybody called in with a public comment for this meeting?
We'll go ahead and check. Okay. We're having a little bit of technical. Let me double check something here.
Okay.
It does not appear we have any calls.
Thank you, DCM Chamberlain. I appreciate that. Well, we are down to our work, City Manager Ritzma. So what is on our agenda for this evening?
Thank you, Your Honor. And I'd just like to call forward our Director of Public Services, James Baker. We have something a little unique tonight in that we're talking about utility rates here in end of August. Obviously, with a lot of the concerns in inflation and our costs in the utilities, we need to be looking at a rate adjustment sooner than later. So I'll turn it over to Director Baker, and he'll be able to walk you through the presentation we have this evening, and then we also have our rate consultant, Bart Foster, available via virtually. So, Mr. Baker.
Welcome, Director Baker.
Honor, City Manager. Before I get started in the presentation, I did want to acknowledge a guest we have here tonight, invite him up to speak, Mr. Tom Wheat. Mr. Wheat represents the Utility Policy Committee. The Utility Policy Committee is a joint cooperative effort between the City of Kalamazoo and the area local governments of our utility system. It helps to set matters of policy and recommendations for the public utility. Mr. Wheat?
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm part of the Utility Policy Committee. The Utility Policy Committee is a committee that was set up in the new water contract, the new 40-year water contract between the city and the townships. And one of our duties is to help review the rates, any rate increases, amongst other things. And for tonight, it is the rate increase. And make recommendations to the City Commission after we've had a chance to look at it in our committee meetings. And I just wanted to let the City Commission know that we did look at that on August 11th at our meeting, and Utility Policy Committee is recommending the increases in the rates that James is going to be talking about on the water side. And thank you for having me up here. I wanted to be part of this, but I do have a meeting I have to go to at 6, so I want to be able to address you before I run out of here. So when I do run out of here, I would like to stay, but I have to go to a different meeting, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wheat.
Thank you. And then, as acknowledged by the city manager, we do have our rate consultant that is on the line with us. And as we work through the presentation, and there's questions and comments, we'll have an opportunity for city commission to interact with the rate consultant if that questions do arise. So we'll go ahead and get into the presentation. Again, tonight we want to provide an overview of what are the water and wastewater utilities. These water utilities are larger than just the city of Kalamazoo, so we want to present some of the coverage area and talk a little bit about that. We also want to talk about our projects. We're going to highlight some specific 2023 projects. We're also going to talk about a lot of the strategies and performance of a lot of the projects that we have been working on over the past few years. That will also kind of lead us up to talk about our proposed rate increases and then the schedule and timing of what those proposals look like. So on the screen in front of you, you have a little bit of a blue polygon. That area represents the coverage area of our water utility. The water utility and wastewater utility have a little bit different customer background, and so we serve a lot of the same customers, but there are some differences between the two customer bases. I want to provide some highlights of the Kalamazoo drinking water system. Again, this is a very large water utility. It's the largest groundwater only water utility in the state of Michigan. And from a drinking water utility size standpoint, it's our 5th largest drinking water utility in the state of Michigan. There is some very unique components of our drinking water utility. A lot of that also focuses on our decentralized supply, in that we've got a number of wells, 94 wells, and we've got 16 points of treatment or points of entry into the system, 13 of which are operational, and we can talk more specifics about that as we introduce some of our projects. The wastewater coverage area is a little bit different, as I introduced earlier, than drinking water. The green polygon that you have in front of you represents our service district or service area of the wastewater system. The most notable difference is that the City of Kalamazoo wastewater system provides service for all of City of Portage, in that we are the treatment plant for the City of Portage. The rest of the areas are all very similar in terms of connected townships, and then we go all the way up to the north, up into Berry County, through a partnership with Gull Lake Sewer and Water Authority, and we also go all the way over into Van Buren County with a contract service agreement with the Village of Manawan. Some highlights of the wastewater system. Again, it's a pretty large system, it's very technically advanced. The treatment plant here in Kalamazoo has some very unique advancements that were built out over the years that provides some real opportunities for economic development and support a lot of unique manufacturing that happens here in Kalamazoo. Compliance rating is really important for us. Compliance rating is essentially all of our permit required discharge parameters that we discharge back into this Kalamazoo River, and we're measured on that performance. What you see in front of you at 99.83% performance is a set of data gathered from January 1st through June 30th of this year. Transitioning into some of our highlighted capital projects. I'm just going to broadly introduce a lot of these projects now, and then we'll get into some more detail here in a little bit. But if we look at the wide array of capital projects that we're looking at doing, it's a lot of focus on lead service line replacements, cast iron main replacement, we'll talk about that, station treatment and process improvements, both in water and wastewater. We are making sewer improvements in linear assets, and again, some enhancements and treatment at the wastewater treatment plant. So talking about lead service line replacements, this is something the City of Kalamazoo really became heavily focused on in 2017. In 2017, the city set itself up to achieve 20-year replacement at that time. At that point, we've accomplished 500 replacements per year with a goal to have all lead service lines replaced by 2037. Last year, we hit over 940 replacements. That's our single best performance in any one year, nearly doubling our one-year goal. We've got a couple of large area projects. We've just completed our East Kalamazoo project, and we are now in the process of transitioning to North Kalamazoo project. The North Kalamazoo project is going to be completed in 2 phases. Phase 1, which we're under right now, looks to get after 37 streets within the north side neighborhood proper. Phase 2 will start next year, and then we'll expand our area out to go all the way to Nichols Road to the west, all the way up to Mazel to the north. Main Street will be, our Main or Kalamazoo Avenue will be our southern limit of the project, and then the east limit of that project will be Kalamazoo River. One of the programs that we did want to highlight is our free lead filter and lead testing campaigns that we've been doing. Anybody can call City Kalamazoo at 311 or 337-8000 and request either free lead sampling or a filter, and we will provide that at no cost. One of the great things that we've done in partnership with our Community Planning and Economic Development Department is actually set up to go door to door. We started canvassing neighborhoods and going door to door in mid-July, and we're going to be going all the way through the end of September. Through this work, we're able to make a lot of positive connections into the community and connect folks to resources. A direct output of this program is that we've had over 1,300 requests for either filters or testing or assistance within the home. And so that's a great statistics. That's 1,300 additional families that are now protecting themselves and have sought and are receiving information about protecting themselves from lead. So we're really excited about our stats on that and being able to reach out and touch members of our community. Our 90th percentile currently, where we're at today, and this is a number that we just got back in August, that covers our January 1st through June 30th testing timeframe. We're at 7 parts per billion. The limit the action level, if you will, is currently 15 parts per billion. In 2025, that action level is going to drop to 12 parts per billion. Water main replacement is something that we've been really focused on here in City Kalamazoo and coordinating with our street projects. This is essentially using an asset management plan approach to infrastructure investment in Kalamazoo, whereas when we do a major road project, something like a Cork Street or Portage Street, Oakland Drive, this is a great opportunity for us to partner resources and dollars within the water fund as well as with street transportation dollars, so that from a project standpoint we can have a better impact back to our neighborhood. And so we've got a number of projects that we listed out that were very successful in doing that, and we've got a tremendous list of streets on there where within the next 2 years we plan to perform cast iron main replacements. So why cast iron main replacements? Why are we looking to do this? This map in front of you is kind of a heat map, if you will, where the green lines represent water mains that don't have any main breaks. The blue lines are water mains that don't have any main breaks and are new. And then the yellow and the orange and the red lines are water main sections that have experienced increased frequency of main breaks. And that previous list that we had in front of you really gets after some of our worst areas. One of the streets that was identified on there was Lulu. A section of Lulu has over 28 main breaks. And so that's something that we want to be responsive. That's something we want to be able to go back and reinvest into our neighborhoods, our core neighborhoods, to make sure that we're reinvesting in this utility infrastructure. Another major project that we've got, actually this project was already awarded, a $5.9 million project that's currently underway, is a transmission looping project. The project that we highlighted in front of you here is 33rd Street Loop. The goal of this project is to loop the high pressure district with the east side pressure district, east side high pressure district. And what this does, this is a project that's working towards our consolidation, water reliability, and water resiliency. in that we can connect the resources of 2 districts together to really enhance our productivity within those districts. And we can have 2 districts now share resources in terms of production. So we've got multiple production sites to produce water and distribute out into the system, as well as storage. So we can utilize storage facilities in the high to help support water demands in the east side high, and vice versa. You just heard me talk about storage. Storage is a key component of system reliability and resiliency. Those water towers are there not only to help us in times of power outage or need to keep the system floating on water pressure, but also to help sustain and absorb impacts from frequency changes in demands. So if we didn't have water towers, we would rely solely on the pumps, and the pumps would have to run 24/7 to keep the pressure up. The water towers help sustain pressure and make it so we don't have to run the pumps as much. From AWWA, the American Water Works Association, from broad recommendations that they have for fire control and our ability to have resiliency within our system, we look to have about 25% of our max day as water in the air, so to speak, or water in towers. And so that's one of the things that we're working towards. The new water tower on US 131 at our Siesta site that bears the Kalamazoo Promise logo, that was a pretty recent addition to our high pressure district, and that helps support City Kalamazoo and our broad, including several township area along the southern belt of our city corridor. We're building a tower just like that out in Texas Township as well, and that's just going to help the resiliency of the system. We talked earlier about station improvements. We're going to be making a lot of improvements in the treatment itself at the station. This is where we feed phosphates to help with corrosion control as well as sequestration of iron. And we were looking to optimize that program through a number of station improvements over the next few years. Station consolidation, that's a project where we're looking to tie in a station that's near Central. There's a small station located right behind Bright Eyes Brewing, just on the corner of Burdick and Crosstown. That station previously kind of was isolated. It would be a station in and of itself. So we're looking to bring that station in and use it as a input, like a raw water input to Central, so that we can increase our accuracy and precision of treatment. We can do that at Central, but have, some more redundancy. So we're going to be looking to do that throughout our system in a goal to kind of help enhance our ability to offer better precision, accuracy, and control over our treatment technique. Speaking of treatment, I'm going to highlight some of the program and project goals for our Station 5 project. Station 5 sits over at the corner of Skippers and East Michigan. It's kind of on your way out of the city if you were taking East Michigan as a way out. That station has been there since 1914, and that offers our water for our intermediate pressure district. We're going to be completely reimagining that station. We're building a whole new station footprint. That station footprint will have full-scale iron removal, full-scale manganese removal, and then another component of that station enhancement is going to be PFAS removal. So we'll have the full parameter PFAS removal to meet or exceed our Michigan MCLs. And so what this will allow, when the station is completed, the station can go online, and then we can base load this station up into our our intermediate pressure district, and then out and into additional pressure districts as well. So this will be a major enhancement, a major step towards improved treatment throughout the city. Jumping over to wastewater now, talking about some specifics of improvements we've made there. We've been doing a lot of work focused on odor control. We've completed $4.5 million of specific on-site odor treatment at the wastewater treatment plant itself. Those units have been online since July of 2021. We've been steadily improving our EnviroSuite community odor screen, if you will, and this is kind of that image shows you, that's a similar map image that what you'd see if you went online, odor observations at City Kalamazoo, and you can see in real time, and you can trend where the hydrogen sulfide readings are. We've got community sensors and in-plant sensors as well. We're going to be taking part of a new project this year on the discharge of graphic packaging, where the clarifier discharge to our system. We're going to be making some hydraulic improvements to that. The goal of that project is going to be, again, to reduce aerosolized odors that are kind of generated during that cascading flow process. And we're going to also eliminate a junction chamber that formerly sat on graphic packaging property. We're also going to be looking at some passive odor treatment. So we've got a project that's going to kick off yet this year where we're going to install some passive odor treatments on one of our interceptor networks. Talking specifically about sewer upgrades, that was one of the highlights earlier on, but to get into some of the details of that, we're going to be making some trunk line sewer improvements at a siphon, our John Street siphon. So that kind of takes flow from Lake Street and John Street and conveys it up towards our Axtell Interceptor. That project is going to see a realignment of a siphon, increase the size of that siphon, and then reconstruct John Street from Crosstown to Lake, and that's going to help to increase capacity within that area of the sewer districts. Another few projects that we're going to be doing is getting and improving courts and alleys. This is something that we've been doing this for a number of years now. There's a lot of courts and alleys in the Vine neighborhood, and many of those are private streets, in that the street property is actually owned by mutual agreement between all the property owners. There is public water and there is public sewer in those areas. Those areas are in need of reinvestment, and so we're working to go through and reinvest in those. So this work started, I'm going back a number of years now, but Houston Place was one of the first areas that we started this work on. And just for an example, that was a 2-inch lead main, so the water main itself was lead, and then it fed all the individual homes with lead pipes. So that was a project that we did and worked with the community to do that. That is a public street, but there's a lot of other ones. Dutton Court is an example of a project that we did that is private. So the street is private, but the utilities, water and sewer, are public. And just like every utility, we've got to make sure that we're investing in those areas as well. So we'll be getting after those projects. Vine Street Trunk is another capacity sewer project to look to increase capacity. A very large project I'm sure you folks have heard about is the Ransom Interceptor project. That's coordinated with our Northside Cultural Business District work that we're doing to improve the corridor on Ransom. So that's going to be a very large diameter sewer, a 42-inch diameter sewer that's going to go in and connect from Westnedge down to Wallbridge, where the next upstream section was already upsized. So when we did the roundabout, going back a number of years here, we upsized that section of sewer up to 42-inch to be able to handle increased capacity and flows from areas that originate within our core city and areas that originate to the west of us. So this is the next step in that process. We also want to highlight some manhole rehabilitations we're doing. We also want to highlight manhole casting replacements, things that we're doing out in the township in partnership with the Road Commission of Kalamazoo County. So there's a lot of work, and we could go into all the details of all this stuff, but I think it's important that we highlight how much work we're doing in the water and wastewater utilities. Tertiary Treatment is a project, a $13 million project that was awarded in January. We're on pace to complete that next year. And again, this is one of the processes within the wastewater treatment plant. So the footprint that you see there, that was a unused clarifier. We're taking that space, we reconstructed that, and then that's now going to be the footprint of our tertiary treatment operationally next year. So just kind of taking a step back from all that work on the projects and looking at investment in terms of dollars and kind of where do we stack up year over year over year. And if you look, we've got some bar charts in front of you. The green is investment in wastewater, the blue is investment in water, and you see that due to a number of contributing factors, level of service increases, changes in regulations, and aging infrastructure in need of replacement, you see that there is a remarkable difference in annual investment now versus a period of, we went back several years ago. You can go back a decade or so, and you can see there's just a fundamental change in investment over time. And again, this is investment that's happening for a number of contributed reasons: level of service, new and changing regulations, as well as aging infrastructure that we're looking now to reinvest back into. To take those bar charts and turn them into real dollars, we're looking over a 5-year period of $300 million of investment in water and wastewater utilities. This is direct investment into our communities, direct investment back to help sustain the future of growth and enjoyment, economic enjoyment of our community. So we're just stepping now into the discussion on rates, on utility rates. And so I want to make sure we highlight that the water and wastewater utilities are funded through user rates, user charges. So the water bills that we pay for water and sewer, those dollars that we pay go back to fund the system. It funds operation and it funds maintenance. So what we pay is very important to help sustain and keep these utilities running. One of the components of our water rates are equalized rates on the drinking water side of it. So we talked early on about some of the core goals of the Utility Policy Committee, and kind of stepping back before that, our master agreement, our 40-year agreement that we entered into with our partner communities. One of the fundamental principles of that agreement was that we would have equalized rates in drinking water. So I just wanted to highlight that. There's many benefits of that, and we can kind of get into some of that, but I did want to highlight that and all that good work. So from a rate increase standpoint, the rate increases continue to fund all the great work that we talked about. All those projects, the operations and maintenance, the work that we do, and the work that we do to invest back in the community. When we left off last year, when we submitted through the budget process our rate increases that went into effect for 2022, and then we also had projections of rates going forward. During that work, we identified that future rates for 2023 would be approximately 15% for water and 12% for wastewater. Given unprecedented inflationary increases, some of the things, contracts such as sludge hauling and disposal, some of the things that we've been bringing back to commission, nearly every meeting have gone up in pricing. And that increased pricing has kind of led us to make some changes and recommendations going forward. So our utility rate recommendation is 20% effective October 1st for wastewater and January 1st for water. And so we've recognized some difference in timing on these recommendations, and that really is to, one, that recognizes the immediate need for rate increases in wastewater. It recognizes a need to establish these rate increases on an earlier interval in drinking water, and then it also staggers them and steps them out. So October 1st would be the recommendation for wastewater, January 1st for drinking water. And then going into the future, and again, so these rate increase recommendations, we categorize these as fiscal year 2023 rate increases, recognizing that the wastewater rate increase would go into effect before the water, but once they both go into effect, those rate increases would be in effect throughout 2023, and then we would come back through the budget process, perhaps earlier, to make recommendations for 2024. So timing is important. That's one of the things that we learned through doing this work, is that if we're able to bring in the rate increase recommendation, or the rate recommendations, and bring them in so they take effect in January as opposed to March, where we had been operating in the past, and then we realized 9 months of revenue, direct revenue from that versus 12, that the 12 months is a better turnaround for us. I want to kind of relate the rate increases to real dollars. So for city and township, you're looking at between $5.47 a month to $8.87 per month. And so the reason why we've got some variability on these numbers, one, it recognizes there's variability in usage among customers. So not every customer is going to use the same amount of water. There's also a variability in meter size. So depending on where you live in the community and the size of your house, the size of your lot, that sort of thing, you may have different size meters. And your utility bill has two components. You have a readiness to serve charge or meter charge, and then a commodity rate. And again, city and out-city customers pay the same for water. Wastewater has a little bit more complicated customer classifications. On the drinking water side, everybody's a retail customer. Whether you live in the township or the city, everybody is what we call a retail customer. On wastewater, we have several different classifications of customers. We have bulk rate municipal customers, in that we're selling treatment services to another agency, such as a city of Portage or a Galesburg or Gull Lake Sewer and Water Authority, to where those agencies are then serving their customers from a retail basis. We also have a number of what we consider significant industrial user customers, where we're providing treatment for waste streams independent of some of the other retail characteristics, and that we have direct billing for quality and quantity, so that we measure and charge in accordance with the characterization of those wastes. Wastewater rates, as we see, will remain low in comparison to a lot of other communities in Michigan. The typical increase, given this projected 20% or proposed 20% rate increase, would be about $3.47 to $6.05 per month for a typical city user, and about $4.77 to $8.45 per month for a township user. Now, we will tell you that the city rates for wastewater at this time are lower than township rates. However, there is no ordinance or agreement that says city rates have to be lower than township or out city rates. It's just a function of where current and previous investment has occurred, and where current and previous life cycle and age of utility assets are. So at this time, city rates are lower than township rates for wastewater, but there's nothing that says that has to be. It's a function of the rate methodology, and it's a function of where the investment is and has occurred. So we wanted to share this chart with everybody. This is a community comparison. This kind of shows where Kalamazoo is in comparison to other Michigan communities. And you see the orange bars represent Kalamazoo inside and outside rates before the 20% proposed rate increase, and then where those bars would move in response to the 20% proposed wastewater and water rate increases. And you see that, yeah, the bars are moving towards the center, but we remain among the lower across Michigan municipalities, and remain below average. So it looks like Muskegon and Wyoming are lower than Kalamazoo once we make those rate adjustments. We will share that a lot of communities will be facing similar challenges in terms of supply chain cost and cost escalations. Going back again last year when we met, we talked about what are some of the uncertainties, what are some of the drivers that may impact our ability to come forward in the future and to remain committed to some of those earlier projections. So last year we projected, hey, we think we're going to be at 15% of a recommended rate increase for water and 12% for wastewater. So really to highlight some of those uncertainties, to look at what has changed between what we know now and what we thought we knew back in October and November of 2021. We saw dramatic increases in fuel and things associated with fuel, things like sludge hauling. Just to give an example of where we were last year, we had an annual sludge hauling and disposal contract of $4.5 million. We learned this year, in July, we brought forward a $9 million sludge hauling and disposal contract. So we had no indication that that contract was going to take such an increase. And so some of these dramatic increases have really come to kind of create the need for rate increases that we're projecting forward today. So we spent a lot of time talking about the projects we're doing. We spent a lot of time about rate recommendations. We broke that out into some specific dollars so we can understand some direct impacts. But we do want to acknowledge that, one, we take this work very seriously. We understand that these costs impact our community members. We recognize that, and we are working to help to address that. So one of the things that we've been working on since last year, we received grant dollars from State of Michigan to work to develop a Kalamazoo water rate affordability program. That's something that we are working on right now. We plan to bring this forward for comment to the Utility Policy Committee first. It is our goal to have this up and running for 2024, and that's really going to focus on ensuring that we're providing some baseline levels of support for our most vulnerable citizens. Some of the things that we have in place right now, certainly we're going to hold off any shutoffs through 2023. So during 2023, we will not be doing shutoffs. We have payment plan options that you can call us and set up a payment plan for account in arrears. We also have smart meters that we're working to implement. Right now, our main program is through attrition, and we do have some focused area installations of smart meters as well. And what the smart meters allow us to do is identify changes in usage in real time so that we can coordinate and work with the homeowner or user of the customer of that system to make sure that they're aware of those usage. Customers can also kind of take their usage into their hands. So, we'd have the ability for a customer to view in real time what their account usage is. This year, we'll also have the low income water affordability program. That's something that's implemented through the Community Action Agency. We've got a number up here. We'll be sharing these slides. These will be public. This information will be public. And this will offer support for families that have past due water or wastewater utility bills, and that this program does align well with some of the nutrition programs that are already in place, like Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, and some of our programs in schools, such as the Free and Reduced Lunch Program. So that program will run through September 2023. We're also looking at bringing dollars in. This year, we're proud to highlight that we brought over $6 million into the water utility. We had $5 million of Booker grant funds that are being implemented right now, the Northside Lead Service Line Replacement Program. That was also supported by an additional $1 million earmark from U.S. Representative Fred Upton's office. And we've got two pretty large projects that are in the state revolving fund program right now. Kalamazoo has been ranked. We're ranked 29th in the water projects, and I forget the ranking on wastewater, but we're ranked in that as well. The next step in this work to identify funding is to identify where Kalamazoo comes in the fundable range. So they'll apply those dollars based on your funding priority. So we're hopeful that's still in the development process, and we're still looking to apply for additional dollars. Next steps, we're going to talk through, where we plan to go from here. We're speaking here at a public meeting. We also spoke earlier today to a stakeholder group of representative municipal customers and contract industries, folks like Pfizer and some of our customer communities. We plan to bring ordinances forward for consideration on September 6th for first reading, and then September 19th for a vote for action. If those are successful, we would be looking effective dates for wastewater October 1st and effective dates for drinking water January 1st. So with that, we'll open the floor for discussion. And again, we've got Mr. Foster on the line, and we'll respond to any questions or comments from the City Commission. Thank you.
Just a quick question to start off here, because we have some information from Stantec here as well. Do you just want to mention how they're related to this process?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Stantec was brought forward at the recommendation of the Utility Policy Committee to look at and make recommendations for drinking water rates going forward. So this year is a unique year in that we've got Mr. Foster retained. He was already retained earlier in the year and kind of charged with calculating our rates and supporting us in that professional work product. And then as we went through the process of selection using the QBS or qualifications-based selection criteria, the UPC made the recommendation to move forward with Stantec for water rate consultants. So this was a unique opportunity in that we were able to get water rate recommendations from Mr. Foster and the Foster Group, and then we also have water recommendations from Stantec. I can tell you that they agree that the firms support each other in those recommendations, and that going forward, we'll be working with both Mr. Foster and Stantec again, as Mr. Foster would be our wastewater consultant, and then Stantec would be the water consultant. Both Mr. Foster and Stantec were quite engaged with our UPC, and Mayor, you can attest to that as a member of the UPC, that UPC members were able to interact quite well with both Stantec and Mr. Foster.
And just to follow up on that, Stantec was selected through a process run through our purchasing department, the RFP, correct? And ranking proposals that came in, and they were selected out of that process.
Correct. And then just a matter of housekeeping here, the City Commission at its September 6th meeting will actually consider the contract for award to Stantec. So like many consultants, when we get a project that's moving pretty quickly, they were able to work with us and start their process, and recognizing that that formal recommendation will come before the City Commission in September.
Appreciate it. Questions for city staff about, yes, Commissioner Hess.
Thank you for this, Director Baker. So in September, the first reading will go through, and then we will be voting on both wastewater and water rates at the same time. And the wastewater just goes into effect in October, and then January for the water.
Yes, that's correct. So from an agenda topic, you'll have two agenda items. One agenda item will be Chapter 28, which is wastewater, and you'll have the ordinance readings in accordance with that. And then you'll have a second agenda item, which will be drinking water, and that's Chapter 38. So you'll have an opportunity to vote on those independently, and then in the ordinance, it will be written out that the wastewater rate recommendations will go into effect October 1st, and then the water rates, if approved, would go into effect January 1st.
Other questions for Director Baker? Commissioner Decker.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Director Baker. No one likes an increase in anything, although everything nowadays is going up, unfortunately. Can you talk some more about what a smart meter is? Are they required in a home? Is it something that a resident can request?
Yeah, thank you very much. So a smart meter is just, it's a different form of metering the flow and conveying it back to the city more real-time manner. And so we've been working for a number of years now to create kind of the backbone or communication system for the smart meters to operate on. They use radio frequency, and they're able to kind of broadcast that information, that flow or usage information back to the city quicker than the meter technology that we had in the past, where we would go out and actually read meters through a contract. And we still have that. The majority of the system still is the older type of meters. And so with the older type of meters, it's our goal to read them 4 times a year. However, we acknowledge that there's a lot of times that your meter is estimated. And you can see that on your water bill, where it might say actual or it might say estimated. And so if it says estimated, we didn't read it for whatever reason, and we're taking and making an estimate based on your previous usage. What the smart meters do is they take that demand for us to go out and actually read the meter, and it just in real time is constantly providing that information to us. So that if we have a concern, or if a customer has a concern about usage spikes or a leak or something like that, you can identify it much quicker. And so we're currently implementing smart meters through attrition, in that every service call that we go on, every CMO change meter out that we go on for a work order is always going to be the new smart meter. We also have some projects where we're in the southwestern portion of our system, and we're installing smart meters in large areas. We do want to work through our lead service program in kind of our north and east areas to get that work done, and then we'll have programmed within our CIP some future state dollars to really go after smart meters. So in terms of cost, we're looking at about $16 million to get the entire system up and running on smart meters, and that's going to be a future capital program that's not identified right now with the projects you have in front of you.
Thank you. I do appreciate, you and your team for the forward thinking, especially when you talk about the program that you have in place that'll be starting in 2024. I like that because right now we are, as you said, still on the non-shut-off memorandum, and having something for residents to be able to come to and say, hey, I need help, versus just saying, hey, you owe us $1,000 all at once. So I do appreciate that. I did want to say that, again, kudos to you and your team, Commissioner Juarez, and I, when we had that discussion regarding the lead replacements and going door to door, we see how much that is impacting our residents. So I definitely appreciate that. Yeah, thank you for all of that. And again, as Commissioner Hess said, we'll be voting on both of these together at the September 16th meeting. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Decker. Other questions? Vice Mayor Cooney.
Thank you, Mayor. Great presentation, James. You're doing great work, really great stuff. Is our increase consistent with what other communities are doing?
Yes, thank you, Vice Mayor. So we understand that Kalamazoo is not unique in that these costs are really escalating. And so, other communities may take some time to work through their rate recommendations, and I can't give specifics right now to tell you which community is has a rate increase in store for they've got teed up for their next agenda, but I can tell you the cost increases in sludge hauling and disposal are real, and we're seeing other communities are dealing with the same things. One of the things that our wastewater division manager, Mr. Cornell, he now sits on a Michigan Water Environment Association subgroup to focus on cost on that component, on the sludge hauling and disposal methods. If you look at our community comparison chart that we had up during the presentation, that shows you where we're at in comparison with Michigan utilities. And I can tell you that other folks are dealing with that. I'm also going to kind of ask Mr. Foster to weigh in on that. And Mr. Foster, as a professional rating consultant, does deal with other communities and can offer some additional perspective that could be valuable. So, Mr. Foster.
Thanks, James. And Commissioner Cooney, it's a very good question. The chart that James showed, the comparison with other Michigan communities, is the result of some work that I did just in the last few weeks, quite frankly. This proposal for Kalamazoo is trying to get ahead of the game and face a lot of the challenges head on to get these 2023 rates in place as soon as possible. Many other communities are evaluating the same challenges that Kalamazoo's evaluating, and so the data that's reflective of them in those charts hasn't taken action yet. Will they be going up 20%? I don't know. I don't know that the level of challenge is uniform, but it is being experienced by everybody in the state, particularly the sludge hauling costs, the chemical costs, and related utilities. In addition to, James showed that chart on the capital improvements. Kalamazoo's got a pretty high capital agenda on the docket there, particularly in the water system. That's a lot of capital investment to be supported by utility rates, particularly when the cost of financing is increasing. So really, I think it's safe to say that every utility rate payer in the state is going to be experiencing similar pressures. Whether it's the same order of magnitude, I just don't know at this point in time.
Thank you both. See, what I'm hearing is that the root of the problem is twofold. One is we have an aging system. We need improvements in it. You're making improvements that in the long run are really going to pay off for us, and that's one issue. And then the second issue is inflation. And it seems like that's the root of the problem. And from the charts you give us, it looks like we're still in the bottom tier among the states, among the other municipalities in the state. And I think the communication with the community is really important. And I really want to emphasize that help is available. You show that here in the chart, and I think that has to be communicated to the community that there are ways that we're trying to reach out and help people meet these increases, because we know it's a hardship, especially at this time. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Yeah, thanks, Vice Mayor. Other questions? Commissioner Pradel.
Thank you, Director Baker, for presentation. Just to clarify, Commissioner Hess and Commissioner Decker had expounded on your presentation, but just to confirm again for the public, so these rate increases would be effectively, it would be through the end of 2022 for wastewater, and then all of 2023. So the idea is that by doing these two rate increases for wastewater and water this fall, we shouldn't need to ideally consider any rate increases until we're looking at 2024. Is that correct?
That's correct. We would categorize these rate increases as fiscal year 2023 rate increases, recognizing that there's a little bit of a staggered effective date of them, but it is our intent that that action would suffice for all of 2023. And then we would come back with recommendations that would be acted upon under a schedule that would support early January of 2024.
So largely, this is, even though it looks like we're increasing rates twice in 1 year, this is really in large part proactive for 2023. So I just wanted to note that and just have you touch on that a little bit. So the other thing as well, you look at the inflation rate in the U.S. Ending in June, it was 9.1%, which was a 40-year high. We as municipalities, we're not immune from high levels of inflation. You talked about the solid waste removal and how significant that was. I mean, millions of dollars more than forecasted, primarily because of fuel costs and what dump sites were charging as well. So significant. And, we're seeing that in supplementals meeting after meeting after meeting. And when you see like a supplemental in the consent agenda, I mean, that pretty much is saying, hey, things were more expensive than they thought they were going to be. You mentioned about solid waste, but are there other things that you're seeing that material-wise, labor, whatever, there are coming in significantly more than would traditionally be the case? And can you speak a little bit about how it's been hard to forecast because of such high inflation rates as well?
Yes, Commissioner, thank you for the questions there, and certainly thank you for the comments as well. The cost escalations that we're really looking at, I'm going to kind of break them out separate from what we call operations from capital. So I'll talk specifically about operations. And within operations, we are seeing increased costs of fuel that are not just powering the city's fleet. That is a component of it. We do spend a significant amount of dollars on city fleet, gasoline and diesel fuel purchases. I think it's worth noting and recognizing that diesel fuel really is an economic input to many, many things that we procure and transport. And so some of the projects of just shipping costs have gone up. And then we kind of get into all of just the raw material costs. Specifically, the liquid transported chemicals that we utilize for water treatment additives and both in water and wastewater, we're seeing significant cost increases on those. We're bringing those to the City Commission in usually by every quarter, so every 3 months, we're bringing contract recommendations for chemicals. In the past, that was usually done either annually or sometimes up to 3 years. So there's been some pretty significant changes there. We've also followed kind of the ebbs and flows or ups and downs of shortages or challenges of obtaining materials. Things like brass for our lead service lines have been extremely challenging to obtain to the point where we hit 3 months in a row in June, in May, and in April where we performed 0 lead service line replacements. We cannot achieve 500 replacements per year if we're performing 0 lead service line replacements in our most opportune months to do construction. So we've got to be prepared to procure at extremely efficient rates and a really optimized procurement to bring resources into the city. So good news on that is we're back up and running, but when we're really struggling to even obtain materials, you can expect that there's going to be some cost increases associated with that. In terms of the capital projects, I'm kind of stepping into this already with a discussion about lead service lines, but we're seeing typical just procurement, capital projects in the range of 15 to 30% above what some of the original engineer estimates were. Some of the challenges also are with just procuring materials. So water main, the city is actually in the process right now to procure water main independently outside of the contract. So it's out in our bid opportunities right now. It's our goal to procure water main, just flat out, and then have it and give it to projects as we do projects. And the reason for that is, given the information that we have right now, water main is some 40 to 50 weeks out. In other words, if we bid a job and awarded it today, the contractor that we awarded that work to would have to sit idle for about a year before they could start doing that work. So we want to be proactive. So we're making changes now today so that we can get that water main ordered so that we can spend that time of that lag time while we're waiting for procurement over the winter. And the goal here is to not materially affect our ability to construct capital in the spring and summer of next year. So whether it's capital or it's just our operations and maintenance, we're seeing some very significant material impacts to cost.
If you have like material delays, because of back ordering and whatnot, supply chain issues, if that prolongs a project, can that cause project overruns in that regard as well?
Certainly there's that risk and possibility, and we've got a great engineering team. Some of them are here today to help support this work, and what I would like to talk about is how they've taken some of the projects and really kind of optimize their thinking around project delivery. So some of the things we've done when the opportunity arises, that we've gone forward, awarded the work, and that we've allowed additional time for completion. Parkview, which is under construction right now, was awarded back in 2021. We recognized that on that project, we couldn't get valves. Large diameter valves were hard to come by. In fact, we couldn't get them. So we awarded the project, and we kind of tacked on, if you will, a year to the project completion. So we're also doing that on our 33rd Street project that we talked about here today. That project is awarded. We've given additional time on the contract. Another thing that our engineers are looking to do, like we talked about, is order water main and get it coming here. And so it depends on, is the project delivered locally here by City of Kalamazoo? Is it delivered by the Road Commission through a partnership with the Road Commission? We do partnership projects that way. And that's how we do a lot of main replacement out in the townships. We also do work with MDOT. So each one of these lead agencies has a little bit different exposure, if you will, or priority for how they'll implement projects. But we've got a lot of flexibility, and really with the goal to continue to deliver the project and recognize an attempt to minimize cost overruns and everything else.
One of the things I think we should be really proud of as a city in the last year is the rating agencies gave us a boost in our rating. And one of the things that they noted was, strong management. Hats off to you guys. And the other thing that they mentioned was just that the willingness of this commission to make capital improvements and catch up from decades of disinvestment. And I was just wondering if you could speak to that in terms of like what impact that has on, this rate increase as well.
Yeah, I think I'll give a broad response before I turn it over to Mr. Foster, but, really just with respect to that, anytime that the utility itself, represented by first City Manager Jim Ritzma, our Finance Director Mr. Vicente, certainly I play a part in this as well, but anytime that that management team can represent strong management and decision-making skills, that's going to reflect positively. You also have financial targets within your water and wastewater utilities. Those are metrics that we must meet. There's a major, very significant component to that. And then certainly a city commission that's supportive of investment in the community, supportive of rates as needed to support the utility, are going to reflect very, very positively upon the rating agencies. So that's just some broad responses, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Foster for perhaps a little bit detailed comment.
No, I think James, you're spot on. I think I'm actually going through some rating agency reviews with another client today that I was earlier. And I would echo that, it's great look at the community to have positive credit ratings. And notwithstanding any financial realities, that's always something to strive for. But more importantly, it controls the cost at which you can borrow to finance these improvements. So the recent positive ratings outlooks undoubtedly led to lower than would have been otherwise borrowing costs the last time the utilities were in the market for bonds, which was last spring. And looking forward, continued ability to deliver on promises of financial performance and investment in the systems ought to be looked favorably upon by those agencies as well, and lower borrowing costs for future capital improvements, which is critical for the water and wastewater utilities of the city, given the size of the programs. So, I would echo everything James said, and frankly, these increases are designed to keep reporting strong metrics, and that's one of the reasons why wastewater has a little bit of a 2-month jump on water, is to make sure that the 2020 it has some positive impacts on the 2022 financial performance, so that we can continue to have positive metrics to show in those conversations with the agency analysts.
Basically, higher rating means that we can do more with less and save taxpayers money. Last question here. I'll ask, and appreciate your patience, everyone. But so if we were not to pass a higher rate now, or to what you're proposing here, then what?
No, certainly, Commissioner, I thank you for that question. So, in other words, if staff recommendations for rate increases were not approved by the City Commission, going forward, what would the impacts look like? And certainly, I think it's important to recognize that the work that we do, the work that we discuss, the $300 million investment over the next 5 years, all the great work in the community, in investment in treatment, investment in lead service line replacement, investment in cast iron main replacement, a lot of that could be impacted, or may be impacted by some of those rate challenges. Some other more nuanced or more detailed, as we get into it, could be some of those financial metrics that we talked about. So there could be some financial metric impacts to that. With respect to all that, I did want to mention that the water and wastewater utilities are, utility funded. They're essentially user-owned systems, in that the users pay user fees, your water and sewer bills, and that we operate and maintain the system, and we invest in the capital and system. There's not a profit-making portion of this, so there's no profit that's being made. The dollars that are generated within the enterprise funds must stay within the enterprise funds. So there's no dollars that are going to other city programs or things of that nature outside of, what's clearly defined within, some of the policies that support the department as well. So a bit of a broad response, but I do recognize that, there's always the need to take some action, and that these are challenging times, and this is certainly, very critical, and very serious decisions that need to be made, and we thank you for that.
Thank you, Commissioner Pradel. Commissioner Juarez.
We just want to give you guys props for the work that you guys been doing and making sure that the residents of our community have a good water system, and the magic that goes behind and the work that goes behind your typical residents going into their kitchen and turning on their water to boil water for dinner or to take a shower or to flush the toilet. There's a lot that goes behind it that I feel like a large portion of our community doesn't understand. And that being said, I want to just make sure we express that, all that work that goes behind that, right? Because I don't think twice about when I go into the bathroom or when I go into my kitchen and I'm using water. I don't think twice about how it comes out or what all the work that goes behind that, right? It's just a simple turn of a knob and it happens, right? And so a lot of people don't understand the complex system we have in Kalamazoo, the hard work that you and your team do on a daily basis to make sure that continues to happen for the residents of Kalamazoo. And I just wanted to make sure people understand that, it's not just we go and turn on faucets and that's it, right? That being said, I just want to give you guys kudos to you and your team, man, in the efforts of being on the front line of upgrading our systems, making sure our systems are up to date, and making sure our residents have good quality water and waste management, right? Wastewater. And so I just, one question I did have is, let's say September 16th comes around and we do vote on this, and then how do you inform the public? How does the public just get a bill and say, whoa, I got to pay more now? Or what's the process behind that?
Yeah, thank you for the questions and comments, Commissioner Juarez. So one of the things that we will be doing is working out with customer stakeholder groups, things like our contract customers, to try to get the word out. We have developed some really strong relationships with media. We've got Mr. Mike Smith with our communications director here in the city that's going to be helping us to push some of this information out as well. We do have some trifold documents that we publish and advertise what our rates are. But what I'm hearing is kind of a request to perhaps push a little harder than where we had before. So I think we can go back to staff with some recommendations of how do we communicate out, what are some options, so maybe we can consider some pathways moving forward to really let everybody know what's coming and when they can expect it, and what are the dollars contributing for? What does this get you in terms of investment back in your community? So I think let us work on that and bring some more items forward.
Yeah, exactly. I think one of the things, if our community understood the amount of wins and successes we have in our water system, the more they could buy into the fact, like, okay, yeah, I got to contribute, right? And so there is a ton of wins we have when it comes to water and wastewater, right? And so that would be really good just to get out into the community. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Commissioner Decker.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Commissioner Juarez, for also stating that. And the reason that I say that is, I'm on a couple of neighborhood groups, and there was a gentleman that was voicing his concern regarding getting a bill, and he's like, did I miss something? And I think, again, having you and your team and your staff do that outreach, having our communications director here now, Mr. Smith, that is one of the reasons why we hired him on, is to get this information out to the community so they will know. So I just want to thank Commissioner Juarez for making that point. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Juarez and Commissioner Decker. Other questions for Director Baker at this time? So first of all, what I would like to say here is a thank you to everyone who's on the commission. It is continues to be something that is unplanned but just happens. You get a group of people together that are involved and care about a topic, and I would say the questions, the recognitions, it all gets covered. That's the great thing about being in community, is that because we all bring our own thinking to this, and we are working together as a team. A lot of this, the comments that are made and the questions, by the time it gets to me, the ground's been covered. So I appreciate that very, very much. And I also want to remind all of us is that this is committee of the whole. The room's not full. I know this is being broadcast, but we're going to be talking about this 2 more times, because we're going to have the first reading on September 6th, and we're going to have the actual vote on Monday, September 19th. That's when the action will be. Will be both on our agenda, but 2 separate votes, one on wastewater and one on water rates. So that means that some of these good comments will probably be repeating, but they're worth repeating. So let's not assume that it's a one and done on this. We don't need to say it again. So that probably relates to my comments as well. You may hear me say this again. In fact, I'm certain you will. But it is often the case that when these kinds of actions happen, I mean, the headline is probably going to be 20% increase. Sounds like a big number. 20% increase in rates for water and wastewater. And that sounds big. It's a big number. And I will suggest, though, that if you do look back at the dollar amount here, what does 20% mean? You will see that it's not necessarily a huge sum on the dollar side. And when we think about this, somewhat relative when we think about what are we paying for our phones, for our internet access, for other entertainment that we have come to expect to have as part of modern life in our homes, and that this is still a deal compared to all of that. For me, here's how I see this, is that I think as a country and us here, we are in the middle of what I will call a consciousness reset. And that's been driven by a few big things, but certainly our community health, COVID, a heightened recognition about how we have been treating each other fairly and unfairly in this country, and how we need to do differently about that. And it hasn't been just one event. It hasn't been something that happened on 9/11. It has been an event that's been rolling now. We've been in the midst of it for over a couple years. And I think that one thing that's coming out of that is this sense of going back to the basics in a certain way, recognizing that relationships are important, that family is important, that community is important, that we need each other, and that it is critically important that we support each other and make sure that everyone who lives in our community has an opportunity for hope and individual aspiration. And so I think for me, and I hope this isn't drawing too big of a comparison, but part of that back to the basics here is something that the city provides to 25,000 people plus, I think, maybe more across our community. And that is something we tend to be cavalier about. Like Commissioner Juarez said, don't even think twice about turning on the faucet or hopping in the shower. Don't even think about that infrastructure. We don't even recognize what a foundational, important benefit that is for all of us. And I will suggest that, we talk about health and we talk about community health and we talk about, access to doctors and hospitals and that work that we don't do at the city, that actually this work contributes as much to community health as anything that happens in our community. And when people have begun to gather in cities, and that started really in 3000 BC, where we've started communities of people started to manage, how do we manage these things? And we look across the world right now that across the world, unclean water still poses significant risks for large portions of the people that live on this planet. Counts for over 2 million deaths annually, 90% of that in developing countries, half are children, and this is related to things that are addressed by having clean water. Things like just diarrhea, infections, malnutrition, primarily due to the ingestion of fecal pathogens from animals and humans. And this is the system that addresses that. So it is not something to take lightly. We also hear broadly a conversation about water and critical diminishment of water resources in large portions of our own country. And here we are with access to water and recognizing how important that is, that what a contributor it is. So let's be serious about that and not forget, in some ways, the miracle that it is, that we have a system that we can trust to turn on the tap, and we're not going to be making somebody sick in our house. That's the point of it. So profoundly important, and that's, I'm hoping, can be part of the headline on this here, is our recognition of this profoundly important infrastructure that we have, and not just, although I get it, the idea of an increase in the cost for this. This was already mentioned by Director Baker, but this is our system. This is not a profit motive-driven system. A lot of water distribution systems now are privately managed, as a matter of fact, in the world. That is a coming thing. This is a publicly owned system that covers its costs. It doesn't driven by any profit motive here. So this is our system. We're doing this for each other. And like I said, I'll be saying these things again, but we have the luxury here on the commission of expecting that we have city administration from the city manager's office right now that are going to have people with expertise and experience and commitment to this work who are doing the everyday work here at the city of Kalamazoo, and that we can trust that work, and by our supporting it through these actions, make sure that good work continues to get done. So that's my thoughts on this, Director Baker. It's funny, I joke with people because I get in my mailbox the Water and Wastewater Digest and a couple of these other periodicals, which I read in my free time at home, and sometimes point out to you articles of interest in there, and I sometimes feel like, wow, am I a nerd? And but at least I got another nerd who is willing to be excited about some of those things, and you're our nerd. So I appreciate that. Thanks very much for your presentation. Anything else, Manager Risma?
I just want to add on, talking about team and those that support the work. We have a wonderful, incredible leadership team, starting with James Baker, our director. Deputy City Manager Chamberlain provides administrative oversight for the utilities. We have Deputy Director Teresa Johnson that is involved in the day-to-day operations. And it was alluded to, we've got a couple of folks in the audience. We have Anthony Ladd, who is our Public Works Division Manager, so engineer overseeing these projects. And we have Letta Sellers Evans, Support Services Director, our Division Manager. So it's all these folks working together that make this system and this city operate. And I just want to thank them for their great work and dedication, and we can be proud of what we have here in Kalamazoo.
Thank you very much, Manager Risma, and thank you to the whole team. Now is the opportunity for commissioner comments on any topic. Anybody want to take advantage of that? For Committee of the Whole? Just a reminder, We do have a business meeting coming up. It will be on Tuesday, right? Our next business meeting, not on Monday night because it's because of Labor Day. And so we will have, at that meeting, it'll be a regular meeting. We're going to have a committee of the whole at that time, is right, Manager Ritzman. So a couple more exciting meetings coming up right here next week. Seeing no comments, then I'm going to say thank you one and all. It's a pleasure to be with you this evening, and we're adjourned.